Good day, everyone. I am Kyra Cristil Fuentes. So now I, together with my groupmates, Beatriz Orwella, Kristen May Queta, Jenny Byron, and Kezia Tunday, will be discussing about the chapter 3, which is the cognitive learning theories. I hope you will learn something from our discussion. So now, without further ado, let us proceed to our topic. So chapter 3, cognitive learning theories. So what comes into our mind when we talk about this one? So cognitive is related to cognition. Cognitive learning derived its meaning from the word cognition. It is defined as the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. So for instance, if we acquire new things, we use the knowledge or experiences that we already have or the previous knowledge and experiences to understand the certain acquired knowledge. So learning objectives. Before proceeding to our discussion to the lesson 1, we will first read the learning objectives. In this chapter, you are expected to explain the meaning of cognitive learning theories, differentiate the cognitive learning theories by citing their key features, cite empirical proofs of the cognitive learning theories, and identify the teaching implications of the cognitive learning theories. So now, let us proceed with lesson 1, Piaget's cognitive development theory. After completing this lesson, you will be able to explain terms and concepts associated with Piaget's cognitive theory, discuss the stages of cognitive development, and identify teaching strategies that are supportive of Piaget's theory. So here in the slide, you will see the picture of Jean Piaget. He is a Swiss psychologist known for his work on child development, which is the theory of cognitive development. So he strongly believes that the interaction of the child in the environment has a great influence to the learning of the child. Jean Piaget argued in his theory that children's cognitive development is influenced by biological maturation and their interaction with the environment. So we will know how learning occurs. Piaget introduced the concepts of schema, assimilation, and accommodation to explain how cognitive development happens. So schema is a cohesive, repeatable action sequence possessing component actions that are tightly interconnected and governed by a core meaning. So this is according to Piaget, 1952. So this pertains to the person's way of organizing knowledge. For instance, it is like the central processing unit of a computer or CPU where all of the knowledge or data are organized. It is like an individual files representing an aspect of the world like objects, actions, and concepts. So Piaget used the term adaptation to refer to the ability to adjust to a piece of new information or experience. So learning happens when people are able to adapt to every experience. So to further explain this, we will give you an example. The story of Jaden, a boy who is no more than 2 years old who formed the concept of dog, as he played very often with Starbucks, a Shih Tzu, the family dog. When introduced to a poodle, he called the same as dog. One day, he saw the neighbor's cat and shouted dog to get the attention of his mother. So in this example, Jaden's schema for dogs or Jaden's idea of dogs includes having a small furry body with 4 legs, a waggling tail, and barking ability. So calling the poodle dog is called the assimilation. This is what we call the process of taking new information into the existing schema. It is like relating your previous knowledge to the new idea. While on the other hand, when the mother explained that dogs bark but cats meow, Jaden was able to accommodate the new experience. Thus, his schema or his idea for cats was created. This is what we call the accommodation. This involves changing or altering existing schemas owing to the new information provided or learned. It is like the process of changing your present knowledge in order to relate it to the new ideas that you have acquired. So the balance of assimilation and accommodation is achieved through a mechanism which Piaget called equilibration. This ability is believed to be a factor in children's ability to move from one stage to another in cognitive development. So if the person is unable to take a balance of these two processes, this equilibrium occurs. So remember, if the person is unable to take a balance of the two processes, the assimilation and the accommodation, this equilibrium occurs. So here in this slide, you can see a figure of the adaptive process of schema development. So when our existing schema can explain what we perceive around us, it means that we are in a state of equilibrium. However, when we meet a new situation that we cannot explain, it creates disequilibrium. This is an unpleasant sensation which we try to escape. This gives the motivation for learning. So, let us now proceed to the stages of cognitive development, which was proposed by Piaget. To Piaget, cognitive development among children has 4 phases, which are the sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational stages. According to him, children generally move through these different stages of mental development. So each stage describes how children acquire knowledge and the nature of intelligence. So the first stage of cognitive development is the sensory motor. This occurs from 0 to 2 years. So in this stage, the child learns through reflexes, senses, and movements. So the child learns from what they see, they hear, they feel, or everything that is related to his or her senses. The child also learns the actions from the environment. So also, the child begins to imitate others and remember events. They try to imitate the persons around them or persons from their environment. Shifts to symbolic thinking. Comes to understand that objects do not cease to exist when they are out of sight. So, in this stage, 2 major accomplishments happen at this stage. One is the object permanence, the belief that an object still exists even if not within the sight of the child. It requires the ability to form a mental representation of the object. The other major achievement that children demonstrate in this stage is the goal-directed actions. So initially, children do not think about what they do as these actions are instinctive and involuntary. So an example for the object permanence is when the mother leaves for work, the child is aware that the mother comes home in the afternoon. So an example of the goal-directed actions is like getting food and family attention. These actions are instinctive and involuntary for the children. So now let us proceed to the second stage, which is the pre-operational stage. So this occurs from 2 to 7 years. Begins about the time the child starts talking to about 7 years old. Develops language and begins to use symbols to represent objects. Has difficulty with past and future and always thinks in the present. Can think through operations logically in one direction, has problems understanding the point of view of another person. So at this stage, children have not yet mastered mental operations because they use action schemes connected to physical manipulations, not logical reasoning. At the beginning of the pre-operational stage, the child does not use operations, so the thinking is influenced by the way things appear rather than logical reasoning. When we say operations, this means the actions a person carries out by thinking them through instead of performing them. So an example of this is the kindergarten learners who uses sticks to count. So another ability demonstrated at this stage is children's ability to form and use symbols to represent a physical action or reality. This is a semiotic function. A child's ability to identify from a book the picture of a bird illustrates this skill. However, they have not yet developed logical or operational skills, thought characteristics of later stages. Thinking is still intuitive or based on subjective judgments about situations. So, of course, because they are just a child, they are also egocentric, or they are centered on their own views of the world. So, to explain the rest, the two cognitive development stages, we will listen to Beatriz Oruela.
Good day, everyone. I am Beatriz Oruela, and I am going to continue the discussion about the stages of cognitive development. So the first two stages were discussed by Kyra. So the first one was the sensory motor stage, and the second one was pre-operational stage. Now let's move on to the third stage of cognitive development, concrete operational stage. Concrete operations are described by Piaget as the ability to engage in hands-on thinking. So it is characterized by organized and rational thinking. A major ability at this stage is reversible thinking, thinking backward from the end to the beginning, and this is according to Woolfolk 2016. Reversibility involves conservation and disintegration. Conservation is the belief that whatever the arrangement or appearance of the object, as long as there is nothing added or decreased, the number or amount of the object would remain the same. A related skill is disintegration. So in this skill, the children's ability to focus on more than one dimensions of an object at a time. So children at this stage would understand that the smaller but wider glass contains the same amount of fruit juice with the content of the tall but narrower glass. These children not only focus on the height of the glass, but also considers its width. The width of the narrow glass compensates the shortness of its height. Next is classification. Classification is another skill at this stage. So it involves the ability to group similar objects in terms of color, shape, use, etc. A related skill is seriation, so the ability to arrange objects according to size, like small to smallest, far to farthest, etc. An example for this is that a bull is big, the carabao is bigger, and the elephant is the biggest. So this best illustrates this ability. Now, let's proceed to the last stage of cognitive development, the formal operational stage. At this stage, the adolescents can engage in mental processes including abstract thinking and coordination of some variables. This is according to Woolfolk 2016. All the earlier mental abilities have been mastered. So the adolescents can now think like a scientist, as they can give hypotheses and conjectures about the problem, set up experiments to test them, and control extraneous variables to arrive at a valid and reliable explanation. They are capable of giving deductions as they systematically evaluate their observations as well as their answers. This ability is called hypothetical deductive reasoning. Another feature at this stage is adolescent egocentrism, the assumption that although others have different perceptions and beliefs, every individual shares others' thoughts, feelings, and concerns. This is opposite to egocentric characteristic in the earlier stages, wherein children think what they or others think are similar to theirs. So, those are the 4 stages of cognitive development according to Piaget. First is the sensory motor stage. Second is the pre-operational stage. Third, concrete operational stage. And fourth, formal operational stage. Now let's proceed to the teaching implications of Piaget's cognitive development. So the influence of Piaget on classroom instruction is summarized in his words. What is derived is that the teacher ceases being a lecturer satisfied with transmitting ready-made solutions. His role should rather be that of a mentor stimulating initiative and research. So that is according to Piaget. So that words of Piaget behoves the teacher to be creative in imparting knowledge and skills to the students, to engage them in a more active learning environment. Curriculum and instructional materials should complement each other. Burke 2013 provided a summary of teaching implications derived from Piaget theory of cognitive development. So these considerations include the following. First, a focus on the process of children's thinking, not just its product. So instead of simply checking for a correct answer, teachers should emphasize the students' understanding and the process they use to get the answer. Second is recognition of the crucial role of children's self-initiative, active involvement in learning activities. So in Piagetian classroom, children are encouraged to discover themselves through spontaneous interaction with the environment rather than the presentation of ready-made knowledge. Third is that a de-emphasis on practices aimed at making children adult-like in their thinking. So it refers to what Piaget referred to as the American question, which is, how can we speed up development? So he believes that trying to speed up and accelerate children's process through the stages could be worse than no teaching at all. And fourth, acceptance of individual difference in development progress. So Piaget's theory asserts that children go through all the same development stages. However, they do so at different rates. So because of this variation, teachers must exert a special effort to arrange classroom activities for individuals and groups of children rather than for the whole class. So, in addition, Webb 1980 recommended some considerations for teachers to ponder upon in their teaching practices. These include the following. First, consider the stage characteristics of the student's thought processes in planning learning activities. Second, use a wide variety of experiences rather than drill on specific tasks to maximize cognitive development. Third, do not assume that reaching adolescence or adulthood guarantees the ability to perform formal operations. Fourth, remember that each person structures its learning situation in terms of his schemata. Therefore, no two persons will derive the same meaning or benefit from a given experience. Next is individualized learning experiences so that each student is working at a level that is high enough to be challenging and realistic enough to prevent excessive frustrations. Next is provide experience necessary for the development of concepts before the use of these concepts in learning. Next is consider learning an active restructuring of thought rather than an increase in content. Next is make full use of wrong answers by helping the student analyze his or her thinking to retain the correct elements and revise the miscomprehensions. Next is evaluate its student in terms of improving his or her performance. Next, avoid overuse of materials that are so highly structured that creative thought is discouraged. And last, use social interaction in learning experiences to promote increase in both interest and comprehension. So those are the things that a teacher should consider in his or her teaching practices. So Piaget's theory of cognitive development helped add to our understanding of children's intellectual growth. It also stressed that children were not merely passive recipients of knowledge. Instead, they are constantly investigating and experimenting as they build their understanding of how the world works. So that ends our discussion in Lesson 1, which is all about Piaget's cognitive development theory. And I will give now the floor to Ms. Mary Joy Bernante, our next reporter.
Hello everyone, I am Mary Joy Bernante who will be tackle Lesson 2 of Vygotsky, Sociocultural Theory of Cognitive Development. At the end of the lesson, you will be able to explain the sociocultural theory of cognitive development, discuss the major terms and concepts related to the theory, and cite classroom implications of the theory. So, what is sociocultural theory? It is a concept and social conduct are developed on a social level through the child's interactions with others, and later on, he or she develops internal thought processes. The theory supports his view that children's understanding of the social world, which Vygotsky believed can be acquired by either technical or psychological cultural tools, affects their ability to reason. Sociocultural theory is an emerging theory in psychology that looks at the contribution that society makes to individual development. This theory has become more prominent since the 1990s and can be applied in educational settings as well as in socialization and play. It implies that learning is primarily a social process and that contacts with people who are more talented than we are shape how we think and behave. Its major argument is that social interaction mediated through language is a key factor in the child's development. The sociocultural theory of cognitive development was formulated by Lev Semenovich Vygotsky, a Russian psychologist. Its main contention is that language-mediated social interaction is an important component of a child's development. The rule of social interaction, children learn from the more knowledgeable others or MKOs, which include parents, teachers, adults, and more advanced peers. An MKO is anyone who has a higher skill level than the learner in terms of the specific task performed. The socio-cultural approach holds that those in our lives who play mentor-like roles, such as teachers and parents, influence our psychological development in some way. Sometimes, though, our social contacts and involvement in cultural activities are how we form our values and views. In addition to focusing on how mentors and peers affect individual learning, social-cultural theory also considers how societal values and attitudes impact the process of learning. The rule of language. Vygotsky's theory emphasizes that language plays a central role in the theory of human cognitive development. Language plays multiple roles, including culturally shaping the overt behavior of individuals as well as influencing their covert behavior, such as thinking, according to Backholder and Pelaez 2000. Through language, human cognitive development and higher mental functions are initiated from social communications. As people engage in social activities, they are involved in mental and communicative functions. According to the social-cultural learning theory by Vygotsky, a culture's emerging symbols and tools directly influence how language develops. A person can learn a language through a range of social occasions, situations, and activities that all lead to language acquisitions. Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory suggests that learners initially use language for communicative interaction purposes with their interlocutors, and eventually this interpersonal speech takes on an interpersonal function, which the speech is directed to the self. Stages of speech development. Number 1, social or external speech. It is thinking not related to speech, or thinking the forms of images or emotions. Around 3 years old, a kid or youngster, thinking is not developed at this age in any way connected to speech. Instead, thoughts are essentially represented through images, feelings, and sensations. Only simple, socially acceptable expressions of desire or emotions, like shouting or sobbing, are made through speech. For instance, if a youngster was hungry, they might say "dede" or "milk." Speech is only used at this point as a tool to influence the outside environment. The second speech development is egocentric speech. It is a thinking out loud or talking to oneself. The act of a youngster talking to himself or herself through an occasion or activity is known as egocentric speaking. Egocentric speech is associated with egocentric developmental stage, in which children are unable to comprehend the feelings, experiences, and ideas of their peers. The last speech is the inner speech. Speech guides thinking and behavior. Inner speech is thought or speech that is not audible. Here, communication is internalized and used to direct through and thought and action. Higher levels and more complicated thought processes eventually result from it. You can tell that you have an inner monologue when you experience signs like having songs stuck in your head, replaying a favorite podcast or movie in your mind, or having a conversation with yourself. Some people experience inner monologue or speech in the form of hearing their voice going over the words when they read a book. Zone proximal development. The zone of proximal development is defined as the space between what a learner can do without assistance and what a learner can do with adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers. The zone of proximal development is regarded as a key idea in sociocultural theory. This, in Vygotsky's word, is the gap between the actual development level of the learner as determined by the independent problem solving and the degree of potential growth as determined by problem solving under adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers. Basically, it encompasses all of the information and abilities that a person is capable of learning with instructions but has not yet mastered or can do on their own. Children can gradually expand this zone when they are given the opportunity to challenge their abilities and knowledge, frequently by seeing someone who is a little more accomplished than they are. Teaching implications of Vygotsky's theory. Vygotsky's theory requires that the teacher and student are collaborators in the learning process, with the teacher as facilitator or guide in the learner's construction of knowledge and development of skills. The process makes learning a reciprocal experience for both the teacher and learners. In the use of ZPD or zone proximal development. In the use of ZPD or zone proximal development, teachers can organize classroom activities in the following ways. 1. Instruction can be planned to provide practice within the ZPD for individual children or groups of children, using hints, prompts, and direct instruction to help kids improve their ability levels. 2. Scaffolding provides hints and prompts at different levels. In scaffolding, the adult does not simplify the task, but the rule or the learner is simplified through the graduated intervention of the teacher. Scaffolding, where the teacher provides specific prompts to move the child progressively forward toward a goal. 3. Cooperative learning activities can be planned with groups of children at different levels who can help each other to learn. Planning and organizing classroom instruction and lessons. For example, the teacher might organize class into groups where less skilled children are paired with students who have a higher skill level. Understanding the zone of proximal development can be helpful for teachers. In classroom settings, teachers may first assess students to determine their current skill level. Educators can then offer instruction that stretches the limits of each child's capabilities. At first, the student may need assistance from an adult or more knowledgeable peer. Eventually, their zone of proximal development will expand.
Hello, good day everyone. I am Christine Mayketa and I'll be discussing all about the lesson 3, which is the information learning theory. So this theory is one of the theories of cognitive learning. So do you have any prior knowledge about this or any idea about this theory? For those who already encountered or who already know about this theory, this is just a sort of review for you. And for those who haven't encountered this topic yet, so let us get to know more about this together. So before anything else, let us first know the learning objectives of this lesson. At the end of the lesson, you will be able to explain the major features of the information processing theory. Second, cite teaching implications derived from the theory. And lastly, identify the teaching strategies that facilitate the storing and retrieving of information. The nature of information process. The information processing theory, or IPT, of cognitive development was developed by the American psychologist George A. Miller It pertains to the study and analysis of what occurs in person's mind as he or she received a bit of information. It was said by Miller in 1956. So this study will tell us what happens to our mind as we receive a bit of information. So Shank in 2012 said that the other theories enhanced Miller's theory, although the different theories that followed shared common assumptions. So first, information processing occurs in stages that intervene between receiving stimulus and producing a response. So when we receive a stimulus through our senses and we produce a response, then there is already an information process. The formation or the form of information or how it is presented mentally differs depending on the stage. Second, the information processing is analogous to computer processing. When we say analogous, it means similar. So, information processing theory in recent years compared the human brain to a computer. The mind receives and represents or encodes the stimulus from the environment. Processing the information, stores it, locates or retrieves it, and gives a response to it. Learning is a change or revision in the knowledge that has been stored by the memory. So, the input is the information we give to computer or to our brains, while the CPU is likened to our shortened term memory. And the hard drive is our long-term memory. So we will tackle all about the components of IPT as we go further to our discussion today. There are three major components of information processing theory or IPT, namely the sensory memory, the short-term memory, and the long-term memory. So this is the figure of the information processing where we can see the input stimulus, which are our 5 senses, and of course the 3 major components of IPT. This is our guide as we go further about this theory. Let us now proceed to the first major component of IPT. The first one is the sensory memory. Sensory memory is the state in which the stimuli sensed, whether it is heard, seen, touched, smelled, or tasted, are temporarily held in mere seconds for the information to be processed further. As a person is presented of a lot of stimuli at a given time, it serves as a filter of what to focus on. For instance, when watching a basketball game, you can see one person focused on the one who holds the ball, while the attention of the one who holds the ball is centered on the guard's action. So selective attention is the individual's ability to choose and process information while disregarding the other stimuli or information. So Shank in 2012 cited several factors that influence attention. So these 4 are the factors that influences our attention. The first one is the meaning is given by the individual to the task or information. Second, the similarity between competing tasks or source of information. The third one is the ability to complexity of the task as influenced by the prior knowledge. Fourth, the ability to control and sustain attention. The second major component of IPT is the short-term memory. Short-term memory serves as a temporary memory while the information is given further processing before it is transferred to long-term memory. Let us take note that short-term memory serves as a temporary memory because it temporarily holds and stores information. It is also available for a short period of time because information in this stage is 15 to 20 seconds only and can hold from 5 to 9 bits of information only at a given time. Before the information is transferred to long-term memory, there are 2 strategies involved, which are the rehearsal and encoding or elaborating. There are two types of rehearsals, which are the maintenance rehearsal and elaborative rehearsal. So maintenance rehearsal involves repetition of the information to sustain its maintenance in a short term. The use of ABC songs and number songs serves as rehearsal strategies among children because this is the way that the children will remember the alphabet and numbers. Meanwhile, elaborative rehearsal is the process of relating the new information to what is already known and stores in the long-term memory to make new information more significant. This rehearsal has various schemes. These are the various schemes of elaborative rehearsal. The first one is the organization. The process of classifying and grouping bits of information into organized chunks. For instance, memorizing the mobile number involves grouping the 11 numbers into sets of numbers. The second one is the arranging information into hierarchies. The third one, use of mnemonic devices, elaborates information in different ways. Just like the Roy G. Biv, the mnemonic Roy G. Biv asks taught to the children to recall the colors of the rainbow, which are the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And lastly is the imagery. This is a strategy that involves the memory taking what is to be learned and creating meaningful visual, auditory, or kinesthetic images of the information, based off according to Chang in 2012. For instance, it is easy to locate Apayao in Philippine map because it looks like a bust of the former president in the country. Also, an example of kinesthetic imagery is associating that the left hand on the waistline illustrates a less value than the right hand on the waistline indicates a greater value. So, the information that is not rehearsed and maintained in the short-term memory is forgotten. The third and the last major components of IPT is the long-term memory. So it is the storehouse of information transferred from short-term memory. It has also an unlimited space. Varied contents of information are stored, namely semantic memory, episodic memory, procedural memory, and imagery. So first, let us discuss what is semantic memory. Semantic memory is the memory or ideas, words, facts, and concepts that are not part of the person's own experience. It is also defined as a neurocognitive system that makes possible the acquisition, retention, and the use of factual information. So individuals with good semantic memory include those who know the capital of the countries, the different countries in the world, many words and its meaning, the order of the planets, and the other facts. So that is a person who has a semantic memory. Second is the episodic memory. It includes the memory of events that happened in a person's life connected to a specific time and place. So an example of a person who has a procedural memory is a teacher who recalls the step-by-step process of presenting the lesson to the class. So it is clear that from the word procedural memory, so we are able to recall or we are able to know the step-by-step process of a certain thing. The last one is the imagery. Imagery refers to the mental images of what is known. For instance, beginning readers use configuration clues, shapes, and appearance of words to help them in a word recognition. Associating a familiar image to a name of a newly introduced persons like giraffe. So, giraffe was used to associate her new friend, a long-necked beautiful lady. So, the child uses the giraffe to associate her friend, who is long-necked beautiful lady. Retrieving information from the long-term memory. So retrieving information from the long-term memory involves locating the information and transferring it to the short-term memory to be used for a purpose. So studies have shown that a person remembers a lot less of the information stored in long-term memory. The quality of how the information was stored influences its access and retrieval. Retrieval of information from the long-term memory entails bringing to mind the previously acquired information to understand some new input or to make a response. According to Shank 2022, there are two ways of information retrieval. The first one is recalling. Recalling has two types, which are the free recall and cued recall. In free recall, the person has to rely on the information previously learned purely by memory. And the second one, cued recall. Cued recall involves the provision of cues and clues to the person to help in the recall of information. The second way of information retrieval is recognition. Recognition is another way to retrieve information, which involves providing the learners with stimuli as choices to make a decision or judgment. So now let's move on to forgetting. Let's forget in order to move on, right? So anyways, forgetting in IPT is the loss of information, either in the sensory memory, short-term memory, or long-term memory. Interference, I know that you know what is the meaning of interference. It's something like comes between, hinders, or intervenes. It is the process that occurs when remembering certain information hampered by the presence of other information. This is by Woolfolk 2016. There are three types of interference, namely the retroactive interference, proactive interference, and time decay. Retroactive interference, this happens when new information interferes with recalling the previous information. On the other hand, proactive interference, when old information interferes with recalling the new information. So the proactive interference is the opposite one of the retroactive interference. Lastly is the time decay. Time decay is another factor that affects, or another factor for the loss of stored information from the long-term memory. So the unused information decays and forgotten. These are the teaching implications of information processing theory by Woolfolk 2016, Slavin 2018, and Shank 2012. First, make sure that you have the students' attention. Develop a signal that tells students to stop what they are doing and focus on you. Second, move around the room. Use gestures and avoid speaking in monotone. Third, begin a lesson by asking a question that stimulates interest in the topic. Fourth, regain the attention of individual students by walking closer to them, using their names, or asking them a question. Fifth, help students to separate essential from non-essential details. Focus on the most important information. Sixth, when you make an important point, pause, repeat, ask a student to paraphrase, note the information on the board. Seventh, help students to make connections between new information and what they already know. Eighth, provide repetition and review information. Ninth, present materials in a clear and organized way. And lastly, the 10th, focus on the meaning, not on memorization. And that's all for the lesson 3, the information processing theory. This is Christine May.
Good day to each and everyone. I am Jenny and Byron, and I'm going to discuss the lesson 4 of chapter 3 in cognitive learning theories, which is all about the problem solving and creativity. So before we start, let us have here the learning objectives of this topic. So at the end of the lesson, you will be able to first describe the problem solving and creativity. explain the stages or the processes of problem solving and creativity. Second, cite situations manifesting barriers to problem solving and creativity. Differentiate the common problem solving strategies. And last is determine the role of transfer of learning in problem solving and creativity, and cite classroom applications of theories related to problem solving and creativity. So let us have here the problem solving. So what comes into your mind when you heard the word problem solving? So problem solving, it refers to cognitive processing directed at achieving a goal for which the problem solver does not initially know a solution method, according to Mayer 2013. Another definition of problem solving is it is the process of a problem analysis and resolving it in the best way possible for the situation. So this definition consists of 4 major elements according to Mayer 1992 and Mayer and Whitrock 2006. Namely, first we have here the cognitive. So when we say cognitive, it is the problem solving occurs within the problem solver's cognitive system and can only be inferred indirectly from the problem solver's behavior. So problem solver's behavior, it includes the biological changes, introspections, and actions during the problem solver. So next major elements of problem solving, we have here the process. So process, it is the problem solving involves a mental computations in which an operation is applied to mental representation, sometimes resulting in the creation of new mental representation. So in this major element, you have to define your problem first and clarify what is your problem. So next major elements, we have here the directed. So directed, it is the problem solving. The problem solving is aimed at achieving a goal. Next, we have here the personal. So problem solving depends on the existence knowledge of the problem solver, so that what is a problem for one problem solver may not be problem for someone who already knows a solution method. So we have here the example scenario of problem solving. So Anna's food catering business has been profitable as there is no competitor. Lately, a new catering group was put up, offering a good services similar to hers. With the presence of the competitor, some clients have shifted to the new provider. Anna inquires on how to sustain her customers' loyalty. So as you can see, Anna has a problem about her food catering business. So Anna inquires on how to sustain her customers' loyalty. So this is the problem of Anna on how to keep her customers' loyalty. Next, a problem arises when there is a difference between where you are now and where you want to be. A distinguishing feature of a problem is that there is a goal to be reached through some action on your part, but how to get there is not immediately apparent. There is an obstacle or a gap between where you are now and where you want to be, according to Robertson 2015. In Anna's case, her goal is to sustain the customer's clients, but the solution is not there yet, or the current stage. So, a necessary element of a problem is the presence of an obstacle or block toward the attainment of that goal. So for this reason, problem solving happens when an individual strives to eliminate the obstacle that hinders the attainment of the desired goal. So if no obstacles hinders progress towards a goal, attaining the goal is no problem. So according to Rees 1994. So we have here the elements of a problem scenario. First, we have here the current state, block or the obstacle, and the desired goal. So current state, it is example where Anna's case, her goal is to sustain the customer client, but the solution is not there yet. So this is an example of current state, that the problem has no solution yet. So next we have here the block or the obstacle. So when we say block or obstacle, it is when the necessary element of a problem is the presence of an obstacle or block toward the attainment of that goal. Then next we have the desired goal. So when you are having a problem, you have to put a goal. So if no obstacles hinders progress towards a goal, attaining the goal is no problem. So that is Rees said, that if there is no obstacle hinders progress towards a goal, attaining the goal is no problem. Next, we have here the types of problem. There are two types of problem. We have here the well-defined problem and the ill-defined problem. So let us go first with the well-defined problem. So Robertson 2015 described a well-defined problem as one that provides all the information required to solve it. Jonathan 1997 considered it as a problem requiring the application of a definite number of concepts, rules, and principles being studied to a constrained problem solving. So the problem tells you everything you need to know to solve it, whether you need to work out for yourself what you are supposed to do. Likewise, it tells you whether or not there is only one answer or solution, or there are many solutions. For example, in the problem 4 plus 3 equals 7, you are certain that you are to add the two numbers and there is only one correct answer. You also know that you are 100% right or wrong. Nevertheless, there are instances that you have everything to know to solve the problem, but you cannot still arrive at the answer. So in mathematics, for instance, you know the MDAS. MDAS stands for multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. The MDAS rule, but applying them may not be clear to you. So this is well-defined problem means. So next we have here the ill-defined problem. So it is one where the initial state of the problem is given, but the goal state looks like is not provided, according to Robertson 2015. It is typically situated in and emergent from a specific context, where an aspect or aspects of the problem scenario are not well specified. The problem descriptions are not definite, or the information needed to solve it is not expressed in the problem statement, according to Chi and Glaser 1985. So, in this type of a problem, because of this situation, there may be many correct answers as the learners have a divergent circumstances and experiences related to the emergent context. An example of an ill-defined problem is you notice that the population of your town is tremendously increasing and you are alarmed of the consequences. What could be this problem is ill-defined as it is a complex problem. The solution to the problem is multifaceted. faced it, as there is an interplay of social, political, religious, and sociological issues to consider in arriving at the solution. So the solution is one town varies to another town as their circumstances are different. Thus, there is the possibility of getting many correct responses. That was ill-defined problem. So, next is approaches to problem solving. Several approaches have been advanced to explain the problem-solving abilities of individuals, according to Anderson, 1996. So, we have a first approach. We have here the behaviorist approach. So, reproducing a previous behavior to solve a problem. It is a reproductive approach advocated by behaviorists. A person faced with a problem situation is likely use the same solution previously used and was effective in the past. Example, to prepare a garden before planting. The pink mulch is traditionally used because the crop science teacher told it so. So next approach, we have here the Gestaltist approach. So to problem solving is a productive process. Colors experiments with apes underscored the role of insight in the restructuring of a person's representation of the problem. As the individual ponders upon how to solve a problem, a flash of an idea comes to mind, which eventually provides the best solution to the problem. This situation illustrates the eureka moment, where is the moment a person realizes or solves something. A science student, example of this is a science student saw a rural folk using Acapulco extract. Acapulco extract means the cassia alata lean, so locally known as Andadasi in Ilocos, as an antifungal treatment. So the extract was used on his face to treat Taenia flava. After 3 days of treatment, the extract did not only treat the main problem, but it also peeled off the dead cells in the face. So the students conclude that the plant extract also has the exfoliating effect. So next, we have here the problem-solving cycle. So problem-solving is a complex process. Yes, that's exactly what is problem-solving means. So it is not a single skill, but rather an overlapping of some thinking skills as logical thinking, lateral thinking, synthesis, analysis, evaluation, sequencing, decision-making, research, and prediction are likely to be involved according to Tier 2006. So metacognitive thinking is a creativity and transfer of learning interplay in the process. These cognitive and metacognitive skills are expressed in the several models proposed to undertake problem solving. The ideal model of Bransford and Steen, 1993, is adapted to explain the process of problem solving. We have here the ideal model of the problem solving. So here is the cycle. So we have here the identify problem and opportunities, define goals, explore possible strategies, anticipate outcomes and act, and the last we have here the look back and learn. So first cycle we have here the identifying the problems and opportunities. This is the step 1 of the problem solving. So identifying the problem and opportunities. problem solving is initially identifies the problem or the potential problems. Determining the causes of the problem is necessary to pinpoint the major cause to prioritize in resolving the problem. Considering problems with a positive outlook serves an opportunities to do something creative. When problems are treated as opportunities, the result is often an unexpected solution or invention. It can be beneficial to actively attempt to identify problems that have gone unnoticed. People who identified important problems and treat them as opportunities are often among the most successful in their field. So the step one is for instance, your parents have informed you that in the next semester you will stop for the meantime as they are financially incapable to send you to college. It is just one semester more. Just to practice teaching that you need to fulfill to finish your degree. So the problem is how would you financially support your last semester in school? So this dilemma is the current state of this situation. So step 2, we have defined goals. So this second aspect of the model requires you to carefully define your goals in the problem situation. This is different from identifying. For a problem situation, a group of people could identify the existence of a general problem and agree that it represents an opportunity but still disagree about what their goals should be. So different goals often reflect differences in how people understand a problem. So this step is so for the problem situation above is the goal is to continue with your college education, right? So because it is just one semester before the graduation. So another student with the same problematic situation may have a different goal. So different goals can lead people to explore very different strategy. Different goals can lead people to explore every different strategies for solving a problem. So next step we have here the explore possible strategies. So these steps involves looking back at your goals and finding possible strategies to solve the problem. So it entails the recall of procedural knowledge from long-term memory. As you think of alternative ways to solve the problem, ascertain that chosen alternative fits the goal set. So, according to Bransford and Steen, 1993, they argued that even when people explicitly try to solve problems, they often fail to use appropriate strategies. So, some strategies that are very specific and applicable only to a few or limited cases. So, many strategies are suggested to make a problem solving easier. However, the two main strategies used are here. So we have here the main strategies, the heuristic and algorithm. So when we say heuristic, it is a rule of thumb, a mental shortcut that works for solving a problem. So especially those about decision-making tasks. So although there is no 100% certainty that the strategy is successful or adequate to solve the problem, it is most of the time effective and efficient in solving the problem. So because of its efficiency, heuristic can lessen the time to solve, and it can reduce the cognitive load. So a student, example of these strategies is a student who is always late to class may use the alarm clock in the cell phone to signal it is time to wake up. So it may work effectively at times, but if one is in deep slumber, the person may not be awakened by the alarm. So in another example is a mathematics student may know the application of mnemonics, like FOIL down, first outside, inside, last, ganyan. So, and can solve problems involving simple numbers, but may not be able to answer correctly because he or she does not know the multiplication rules of signed numbers. So, the next strategy is algorithm. So the use of algorithm is the use of series of steps to solve a problem. These elements of an algorithm includes a clarify of what is to be done, define inputs rather, outputs, results, and preconditions. So Algorithm is a computer programming, which is a classic example using an algorithm. So the use of if, then, like that. So proposition tells that the use of if, then proposition tells the precondition for the next step to progress. If the next step does not satisfy the condition, it will not result in the expected goal. So doing the standards of algorithms for the fundamental operations in mathematics requires doing the same steps repeatedly with each place value column in a given problem. So we have here example, for instance, we have like 3012 plus 1224 equals 4236, right? So another example of our algorithm strategy we have here in teaching origami, the art of paper folding. So you already know what is origami, right? So we have here the steps presented should be followed one at a time to arrive at the correct art piece, diba? So if you will not follow the steps on how to make that paper folding, that paper, you will not achieve what is you're going to achieve. So dili nimo makuha ang gusto nimong makuha nga shape, or dili nimo ma-fold og tarong if you are not going to follow the steps. So another is when withdrawing money using the ATM card. So one needs to follow the electronic cues to succeed. Okay, if you are not following the rules or the electronic uses in ATM, you will not dili ka maka-withdraw sa money basta dili ka follow sa rules or the electronic cues. So we have here the step 4. So step 4 is the anticipate outcomes and act. So once a strategy is selected, the person must anticipate what outcomes will likely be. So the expectation is the solution to the problem. When assured that the goal will be solved, the person acts or implements the planned strategy. So the problem, like 23 times 21, so should be more than 400 but not 500. So it should not be less than it should not be less than 400 because 20 times 20 is already 400. So this assurance gives the person the confidence to implement the planned strategy. So another example is when a person withdraws a money through ATM, like what I example in the step 3. So the anticipation is that that money will be turned out by the machine. So that motivates the person to follow the steps as cued by the machine. So in step 4, it means like you will anticipate what outcomes will likely be in every solution to the problem. So next step, we have here the look back and learn. So what transpired after the planning strategy to solve the problem is a proof of its effectiveness. So in metacognition, this step is the evaluation of the actions or solutions implemented. If the results give the correct answer, then the strategy used is good and effective. So if the answer is wrong, then the metacognitively asks what went wrong. So the answers could be in the details missed during the analysis of the problem and the inappropriateness of the heuristic or the algorithm strategy or the miscalculation. So if the result is wrong, so there must be a problem in your calculations, like you did not follow the steps and how to make that one like that. So realizing the errors committed along the way will make the person understand the mistakes committed. So in this step is learning from the experience will make the person more careful next time a similar task is given. So like us, diba? In real life, when we are having a mistakes, we learn from it, right? I guess I'm right. So that's the problem solving cycle. So next we have here the barriers to problem solving. So barriers to problem solving. In the research for alternative strategies to solve the problem, the individual finds difficulty in coming up with a potential solution because of varied reasons. Anderson, 1996, listed some of these, and they are as follows. We have here first the mental state. So what is mental state? The situation when the person becomes fixated on the use of a strategy that previously produced the right solution, but in the new situation, it is not the application. So in metacognitive thinking, this is conditional knowledge. So, an English language learner may not be fixated on the rule that the past tense of the verb is usually formed by adding ed to the base form. Thus, given an irregular verb like go, the answer given should be go, right? Go and. So moreover, another example is a mathematics learner could not get the sum of 3-digit numbers that require carrying over because he or she is fixated to the addition of numbers without carrying over. So in this strategy, you have to produce the right solution in order to get the right answer or the correct answer. So The next barrier is functional fixedness. So this is a phenomenon when individuals fail to recognize that objects can have other purposes aside from the traditional use. They were made for. So, example of a functional fixedness is a learner may think that a spoon is only used for eating. However, in instances when no bottle opener is available, so a spoon is usually used to open a bottle of soda drink, diba? So that is a functional fixedness. So next, we have here the failure to distinguish relevant and irrelevant information. So this happens when a situation arises during the analysis of a problem when an individual cannot discern the relevant information or needed in planning the strategy to solve a problem. When the irrelevant information is given more emphasis in the process, it will lead to a wrong solution to a problem. Example of failure to distinguish relevant and irrelevant information is a problem of what to include in a bulletin announcement to help someone who lost a bunch of keys. When the children were asked which details to include were relevant, like where and when it was lost. So how many not only where and when, but also how many keys were there in the key holder. So which keys are these? Who owned it? Where the key holder was bought? When it was bought? Like that. So some children may not be able to identify the relevant from the irrelevant ones. So this is the end of my topic, which is all about the problem solving. So next is the creativity, which will be discussed by Miss Kezia Tunday. So that would be all. Thank you.
I am Kesha Tunday, and I am the one who will discuss about creativity in problem solving. So as pointed out in the earlier discussion, mental state and functional fixedness are stumbling blocks in problem solving. These obstacles hamper the consideration of new alternative ways to solve a problem. They illustrate the lack of creativity on the part of the person. Theorists agree that creative problem solving must be taught and encouraged among learners. So what is creativity? Creativity defined as the interaction among aptitude, process, and environment by which an individual or group produces a perceptible product that is both novel and useful as defined within a social context. So the definition underscores the rule of aptitude. Aptitude, process, product, novelty, and use. So varied theories explain how creativity is developed. One of the theories is the developmental theory, which advocates that creativity develops over time from potential to achievement. It is mediated by an interaction of person and environment. Meanwhile, the cognitive theory of creativity states that ideational thought processes are foundational to creative pursuits and accomplishment. Individuals who discern remote association and are good at divergent or convergent thinking and conceptual combination and metacognitive processes are likely to be more creative. The stage and componential process of creativity. So this creativity points out that creative expression proceeds through a series of stages or components. The process can have linear and recursive elements. It highlights the importance of preparation, incubation and insight, and verification and evaluation in creative thinking. One of the first models of creativity was advanced by Guilford in 1967. He considered creativity as a divergent thinking act. He claimed that creativity is the result of several processes like fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration. So when we say fluency, it is defined as the ability to produce a great number of ideas or problem solutions in a short period. In solving problems related to solid waste, a learner can give novel ideas on recycling a plastic water container more than the other learners, which demonstrates fluency, while the flexibility is the ability to simultaneously propose a variety of approaches to a specific problem. In recycling a plastic water container, a learner can suggest many ways of using them. It can be used as food container, wall decoration, and insect trap, which shows that the learner has flexibility of ideas. Next is the originality. So originality refers to the ability to produce new original ideas as well as products. If there is no other learner who gave the same idea or product of another learner, that idea is original, as there is only one learner who could think of it. And lastly, we have elaboration. Elaboration is the ability to systemize and organize the details of an idea in one's head and carry it out. If the learners could pick one solution to solve a problem and give specific details to implement the same, he or she is manifesting elaboration. So the creative process follows certain stages. So it includes preparation, incubation, elimination, and verification. So preparation is the initial stage of the creative process. It involves becoming passionate about an idea, which motivates you to gather materials like read, observe, and compare. The information gathered seeps into your subconsciousness, eventually remaining there momentarily. The next step is incubation, the period where you unconsciously continues to work on the idea, but there is no active attempt to solve the problem. The mind just wanders until an idea takes form. In the next step, we have elimination. A sudden idea pops out in your mind. The subconscious thoughts find the connection with the consciousness, resulting in the AHA and eureka moments. Once the idea is concretized, it needs to be verified. So the last step is we have verification. Verification, the final stage of the creative process, involves working with the idea into a form. that can be tested, and once proven, it could be communicated to others. So next we have transfer of learning in problem solving and creativity. So problem solving is made easier if the learner can retrieve declarative knowledge, procedural knowledge, and conditional knowledge from the long-term memory. If the problem-solving task requires convergent answers, problem solving can be quite easy if the learner has mastered algorithm techniques. Nevertheless, even if the problem-solving tasks require divergent thinking, if there have been experiences in the past that enable to the learner to answer such tasks, solving them could be successfully done. The phenomenon that past experience in solving problems are carried over or used in solving new problems is referred to as the transfer of learning. Transfer of learning are categorized into the following. So we have near transfer and far transfer. When learners apply their knowledge and skills in situations and contexts that are very close to those in which the learning occurred, it is near transfer. While when learners perform a skill in a context very much different from the context it was learned, it is what we called far transfer. So learners find it easier to add 3-digit numbers after they have learned the lesson. However, they find difficulty employing the same skill when the task is transformed into a word problem solving, and that is what we call forced transfer. Next, we have positive and negative transfer. When learners can use their prior knowledge or experience in solving a new problem situation, it is positive transfer. While when the previous learning or skills obstruct the acquisition of a new skill or the solving of a problem, it is negative transfer. Using a new model of the same brand of Android mobile phone is easy as the features are most likely the same, and that is positive transfer. However, when a new phone using iOS technology is bought, there will be difficulty in using it the first time, and that is the negative transfer. Next, we have vertical transfer and lateral transfer. So when we say vertical transfer, it is when learners use their learning at a lower level to perform a higher level of cognitive tasks. While when we say lateral transfer, it is when a learners use the same skill to solve a related but different problem of the comparable level of difficulty after learning it. For example, Ruben finds it easy to add 5-digit numbers as he has mastered adding numbers with or without carrying over in the previous grade. Likewise, so that is the vertical transfer. Likewise, Ruben relies on his knowledge of finding ratios in mathematics and acquiring the skill of finding the seed germination rate in a science laboratory task, and that is the lateral transfer. Next is we have neutral or zero transfer. When we say neutral or zero transfer, this happens when past learning or prior experience does not enhance or hinder the acquisition of a new skill or in the solution of a problem. So in the transfer of learning, Glass and Holyoke 1986 stated that The problem-solving process involves several aspects, from which three major facets tend to emerge. So we have three major facets tend to emerge. First, we have the solver's representation of the problem. The second one is the solver's background experiences, and the last is we have the solver's understanding of the problem. So they explain that the learner begins the problem-solving process as soon as enough of information about the problem space is generated to gain an understanding of the problem. Several theories explain how learning is transferred from one situation to another. So we have the theory of identical elements by Thorndike. Maintains that the quality of transfer depends on the identical elements that are common in both past and new situations if the content, method, goal, and attitude in the two situations are similar. The transfer is facilitated. The next theory is we have the theory of generalization, developed by Jude, states that skills learned are transferable to other situations. It argues that if the learner has fully understood the lesson and mastered the competency, there is a greater likelihood that such skill can be transferred to a similar situation. Meanwhile, the theory of configuration, anchored on Gestalt psychology, emphasizes the important role of perception in the transfer of learning. It argues that what is learned in one situation can be shifted directly to another situation, only when similarity in content, method, or attitude of the two situations is perceived by the learner. So, next we have classroom application of cognitive learning theories. So, teachers can benefit from the teaching principles associated with cognitive learning theories, along with problem solving. Wolfall 2017 recommended the following. So first we have ask students if they understand the problem. So let them separate relevant from irrelevant information. Test their awareness of the assumptions. Encourage them to visualize the problem by diagramming or drawing it. Ask them to explain the problem to someone else. The next we have encourage attempts to see the problem from different angles. Suggest several different possibilities yourself, and then ask students to offer some. Give students practice in taking and defending different points of view on an issue. Next, we have let students think. Do not just hand them solutions. Offer individual problem as well as group problems, so that each student has the chance to practice. Give partial credit if students have good reasons for wrong solutions to problems. Next, we have helped students to develop systematic ways of considering alternatives. Tell them to think out loud as they solve problems. Ask what would happen if. Keep a list of suggestions. So next we have teach heuristics. Encourage them to use analogies to solve problems. So in teaching creativity, Wolfall 2017 also recommended the following strategies in teaching learners. So we have accept and encourage divergent thinking. Reinforce attempts at unusual solutions to problems. Even if the final product is not perfect, offer choices in topics for projects or modes of presentation like written, oral, visual, or graphic using technology. So next we have tolerate dissent. Ask students to support dissenting opinions. Make sure that non-conforming students receive an equal share of classroom privileges and rewards. Encourage students to trust their judgment. When students ask questions that you think they can answer, rephrase or clarify the questions and direct them back to the students. Next, we have emphasized that everyone is capable of creativity in some form. Avoid describing the feats of great artists or inventors as if they were superhuman accomplishments. Next, we have provide time, space, and materials to support creative projects. Here are some examples. Collect found materials for collages and creations, button stones, shells, paper, fabric, beads, seeds, drawing tools, clay, and try flea markets and friends for donations. Next, we have be a stimulus for creative thinking. Use class brainstorming session whenever possible. Next, we have capitalize on new technology. Ask the students to use free apps to create visual maps of ideas and share their ideas with others. To promote the transfer of learning, the following teaching learning strategies are helpful. So first we have keep families informed about their child's curriculum so they can support their learning. Second, we have give families ideas on how they might encourage their children to practice, extend, or apply what they learn from school. And the third, show connections between learning in school and life outside of school. And the last one, we have partner with families in practicing learning in strategies. That's all. Thank you.